My name is Easton Wolf, and I'm a city council member for Des Moines, Iowa. Progress Texas keeps me in touch with home and how it was like to be a Texas Democrat. I really like how unifying y'all are and how much y'all really bring to light what is going on, not just in Texas, but also nationally, and then really honing it into proving how we can do better going forward.
It's Tuesday, May 12th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch. Rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions through our no paywall podcast and digital media. We reach millions of Texans monthly, and that's made possible by folks like you who invest in independent progressive media by Texans for Texans. Our thanks to Gregory Pulte, Kimberly Siri, and Stu Campbell for their ongoing sustaining support. Notice that Stu, in fact, was just awarded the inaugural Justice Jeffrey S. Boyd Excellence in Access to Justice Award by the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers. Congratulations, Stu. And starting with justice here, this Thursday was the date set for the second execution in Texas in as many weeks. Yesterday's decision by the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to halt the execution of Edward Busby in a moment of clarity for that notoriously conservative court, acknowledging the profound constitutional necessity of ensuring that individuals with intellectual disabilities are not subjected to capital punishment. Aidan Runoffs at the Texas Tribune says the Busby appeal to that court argued that a prior court had improperly denied his request for funding to test him for intellectual disability and provided two new tests from experts, including one provided by the state itself, that he does indeed suffer from such a disability. Attorney General and U.S. Senate candidate Ken Paxton, of course, immediately began his predictable push to vacate the stay in an unsurprisingly callous waving away of fundamental human rights. Part of the call by the Fifth Circuit hinges on an upcoming U.S. Supreme Court decision on clarifying intellectual eligibility for execution. What a concept that is. Edward Busby, by the way, was convicted in Tarrant County, as we mentioned yesterday, a part of the state that far exceeds its statewide mandate when it comes to death sentences. To support capital punishment, especially for a person who claims to hold life as the highest of precious commodities in this world, requires a steadfast belief that our justice system gets these cases exactly right 100% of the time. And nobody with any degree of intellectual integrity believes that capital punishment is simply wrong and should not be happening in the name of Texas citizens, including you and me. I'm getting excited to vote, y'all. Early voting in the primary runoff is now less than a week away, coming up next Monday. And speaking of Ken Paxton, he's part of the marquee matchup on the Republican ballot. As you know, John Moritz at the Austin American-Statesman gives us a late update on the Paxton v. John Cornyn fight, which has been bitter from the start and has only gotten more so, creating an undeniable and potentially enduring rift within the Texas GOP, which could prove sweet music indeed to the ears of Democratic nominee and Austin State Rep James Tallarico. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's warnings from the get-go of a possible fatal party fracture in this race are proving prescient as a sustained barrage of personal attacks in both directions. Cornyn's critiques of Paxton's personal ethics, Paxton's dismissal of Cornyn as a career politician out of step with modern values, has done nothing but ramp up and up. Moritz believes, to the great delight of Texas progressives, that the Cornyn-Paxton nuclear exchange is not just an amusing spectacle. It represents a possible structural strategic liability for the Texas GOP that threatens to significantly undermine their control of not just this one U.S. Senate seat. It could gravely damage their decades-long stranglehold on the Texas House. Dan Solomon at Texas Monthly is transfixed as well. He writes that Cornyn in particular is showing clear signs of desperation as he lays out hyper-niche insider attacks that frankly most voters won't understand. Cornyn's lately all in on talking about Dave P., an obscure Uber pseudonym that Paxton has allegedly used to sneak around on his wife. Cornyn's digging in on secret hotel rooms and biblical grounds for divorce. Again, this stuff means something to wonky types like you and me, but the average Republican voter out there is a lot more worried lately about the price of filling up the pickup truck. For the wonks, this is fun, and Paxton's history of corruption is undeniable, but Solomon sees Cornyn's approach as coming off more like a Paxton conspiracy subreddit than a platform designed to win over voters to Cornyn's superior plans for Texas. And it's not working. Senator Cornyn's polling continues to show him falling further and further behind, ironically, possibly proving Ken Paxton right for once, John Cornyn has never seemed more out of touch with everyday Texans. Again, all of this is a massive opportunity for James Tallarico, for whom Texas Democrats and progressives seem mostly unified, while the lion's share of Republican runoff voters are not just undecided, they're deeply hesitant to support either Paxton or Cornyn. And should Cornyn fall to bad campaigning, the dice on Ken Paxton as the weaker of Tallarico's two potential rivals will be rolled. Runoffs on both sides of the aisle for Attorney General, as you also know, and there's a nice rundown on all four of those contenders out from Andrew Schneider at Houston Public Media, who sees far more difference in vision between the two parties than between the opponents on either side. For decades now, Republican AGs, including Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott, have weaponized the job of Texas's top law enforcement authority not to protect Texans and our legal interests, but as a demonstrative springboard for their own ambitions at the expense of Texas taxpayers, both legally and literally. Mays Middleton and Chip Roy on the GOP side, looking to continue that tradition, have essentially been in a race to the far right, both candidates chewing on each other's MAGA credentials and beating their chests over which will more aggressively crack down on Texas's secular and religious minorities. Meanwhile, and in great contrast, both Democratic contenders, State Senator Nathan Johnson and former Galveston Mayor Joe Jaworski, have been promising an end to the use of the Texas AG's office as an instrument of persecution, both pledging a return to that office's rightful role as one of consumer protection, voter access defense, and fighting against corruption, promising to restore the agency's focus in serving ordinary Texans rather than dumping fuel on culture wars. Just imagine, after all these years, the great good that could be done with the Texas Attorney General back on the proper job. Again, I'm jazzed to vote next week, and honestly, I don't recall ever being this worked up about a runoff election before. I'm going to go find my voting shoes after I'm done this morning. Watch this feed over the next few days for updates from several of the Democrats you're likely to see on your runoff ballot next week. The statewide primary runoff elections, again, are scheduled for May 26th. Early voting starts on May 18th, next Monday. See our carefully crafted GoVoteTexas.org for everything you need to know about voting in Texas, and there's a nice online tool from the Texas Tribune that'll show you exactly who will be on your runoff ballot based on your address and your party. Both of those are linked in the show notes. We have not one but two live events on the calendar right now in both Dallas and the Houston area. First, Progress Texas will be hosting a live podcast in Cypress in just a few days. Come join us in Northwest Harris County as we do a first 6 months check-in with Cy-Fair ISD school board members who made national news last year when they beat back the Christian nationalists. Be sure to sign up on the Progress Texas event page and join us on Wednesday evening, May 20th, Creekwood Grill in Cypress. The event is free thanks to our sponsors, Sean Finney, the Honorable Leslie Briones, and Otis Evagaro. And we're getting ready for our 16th anniversary celebration in Dallas with drinks, light bites, and a fun review of the highlights of our successes over the last few years. Save that date. It's Tuesday, June 16th, and see a link in the show notes to reserve your spot. Thanks to our good friends Howard Cleon, Charles Zeller, Alex Andrade, the Honorable Dick Levine, the Honorable Bill Peterson, and Mark Yagjian for their support of our 16th anniversary shindig. We appreciate all of you very much. Our live events are a major way that we keep doing what we do, and by sponsoring and attending these events, you're helping Progress Texas continue our important work during this crucial election year. Learn how to support and join us live at ProgressTexas.org. While you're there, hit the web store. It's ready for you to grab the merch to match your progressive values. Newly released Humans Against Abbott, Y'all Means All, and Resist shirts, stickers, and buttons. The web store is waiting for you now at ProgressTexas.org. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Tuesday, May 12, 2026. Links to all of these original stories can be found in our show notes. When lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a terrific day. We'll catch you again right here tomorrow morning.